Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. Another day, another commitment in the transfer portal for Rutgers football. They picked up this time a running back from Florida Atlantic, CJ Campbell Jr. He was on campus this week for a visit, and basically immediately upon leaving, he committed. He signed paperwork, I believe, at Rutgers to commit himself to the Scarlet Knights. We'll get into his commitment and him as a player. But first, this podcast is presented to you by Knight and Day Apparel. Hey, Rutgers fans, get ready to slam dunk your style with Knight and Day Apparel. Cheer on your Scarlet Knights this basketball season in our exclusive Rutgers gear. From trend-setting designs to lifestyle garments, we've got you covered with everything you need to support your team in comfort and flair. Stand out from the crowd and show your passion for Rutgers basketball with designs that celebrate every dribble, dunk, and victory. Use our promo code RutgersRivals to get 10% off your purchase. Don't wait. Head to Knight and Day Apparel today and gear up for game day. Go Knights. I have mealy mouth this all today. But we are also presented to you by BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. The largest selection of odds from everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEIV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. So CJ Campbell, quite the journey to get to Rutgers. He started out at Florida State. He's a kid from Louisiana, walks on at Florida State, spends 3 years there, doesn't really get a ton of burn. As a redshirt freshman, he had 16 carries for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in Florida State's undefeated season in 23, he was a backup running back. He only had 7 attempts, but he made most of them. He had 117 yards on those 17 attempts and a touchdown. Transferred to Florida Atlantic because he wanted to get more playing time, and he had a breakout season at Florida Atlantic this year. Florida Atlantic, I don't know if anyone followed them. They were not a great football team this year. They went 3-9 in the American. Yeah. Todd Herman, their coach, got let go, which is probably a big part of why CJ Campbell left. But CJ led the team in rushing with 844 yards on 165 carries. That's 5.1 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns on the ground. I think the most intriguing part of Campbell's game is his receiving chops. He actually led the Owls this year in receptions. He had 40 receptions for 466 yards. He also led the team in receiving touchdowns with 3. So he was kind of a do-it-all guy for them this year. PFF-wise, he graded out pretty well. He graded out at a 75.8 overall grade, which was 151st out of all running backs. This is a good pickup for the Scarlet Knights, who are losing out on one of the better backs in program history. And with Sam Brown having his knee injury and, a bunch of guys who are a bit, green behind him, Antoine Raymond's got some decent playing time in his first year. Deshaun Benjamin's played, sparingly his first 2 years at Rutgers. It gives them a guy to stabilize the position for a year while the other guys behind him are kind of getting their feet wet. I like this commitment a lot. Tell us about how this commitment came together. How did Rutgers target in on him, and how did Rutgers close the deal with CJ?
Technically, I know you said Louisiana native, but played his high school ball at Bay High School in Florida, down in Panama City. Florida kid. Rutgers just got involved pretty early, and it's an easy sell for Rutgers if you're a running back. I've said it previously when we did the podcast about his offer, but when you're running the ball 60+% of the time, every single game, it's an easy sell. You could just basically say, hey, you can come in, you could be that guy. Look at our last guy. Our last guy just probably going to be a pretty high draft pick. Just finished second in program history for rushing yards. Oh yeah, the guy before that, he's starting for the 2-time Super Bowl defending champs in the Kansas City Chiefs. So we've also had, you can say with this staff, you could also pitch the Ray Rice stuff. You could pitch everything else, but they've proven that they can produce running backs, and that they've proven that they're going to run the ball a ton. Got him on campus, basically sold the deal. He was supposed to visit USC this weekend, ended up canceling that visit. And you've seen that a lot, this recruiting cycle, not just with portal guys, but with high school kids as well. I know there were multiple this summer where these guys had 3, 4, even 5 official visits lined up for summer. and ended up canceling him right after that Rutgers visit, and just Rutgers was able to sell the deal, sell him on the program in the future. Getting back-to-back bowl games is also huge. It's an easy selling point when you're winning, of course. So yeah, I mean, this is he was. I'm not going to say he was guaranteed like anything, but I could see him being RB1 the minute he steps foot on campus. This kid is very unique. This is a running back that type of running back you've never had before, really. They've never had a pass catching ability from out of the backfield like this previously. Like Monangai could catch the ball, yes. Pacheco could catch the ball, yes, but not to the extent of this. I feel like this kid is a little bit different. I'm very excited for this. They're willing to upgrade this. I'm also very excited for the sole fact that the staff's willing to upgrade any and all positions. It doesn't matter what position it is. If they could find an upgrade in the portal, they're gonna do it, and that's what I feel like they just did with CJ Campbell. And like I said, I think this is RB1, almost like not guaranteed, but he's damn good.
Yeah, for a guy who did not get an opportunity to be a bell cow anywhere before, to seize that opportunity, he averaged over 100 yards from scrimmage per game this season for the Owls. He actually had a game this season where he had over 100 yards rushing and over 100 yards receiving in the same game. And that was the final game of the season. We were talking about this before we hopped on here, but it was against a terrible Tulsa team who I think was 3-8 going into that game. They won like 60 some to 15, I think. Just a lot of big plays in that one, but he had 100 yards rushing on 15 carries, and he also had 4 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown through the air. He will add a dimension that we don't have, a legitimate receiving threat out of the backfield. So it'll be exciting to see how Kirk Soraka decides to utilize him. I could see situations where we have multiple backs lined up and, he motions one into the slot and, it becomes a matchup game that I think we can tinker with and win. So very exciting commitment. We don't have like a highlight tape of him that we could play and kind of discuss, but he's got decent speed. He's not like an uber athlete, but he does a lot of the dirty work to make big plays. So I like this pickup a lot. And I know we talked about at one point, like we'd be surprised if a running back was added to this portal class. And I think that's for a few reasons. One, you have sources close to the program who were just raving about how high they were on this receiving or this running back room. So it did not sound like they were going to add somebody. And additionally, they've never added a running back in the portal, and they typically like to develop those guys in-house. And so this is a great pickup for the program, but one that I don't think we necessarily would have charted to start the portal process, but definitely will improve the room for sure.
I mean, going through it all, like Sam Brown, like you mentioned, that was a serious injury. I don't know the exact logistics behind it, but that man's like knee was torn to shreds. It looked like, muscle wise, at least. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing him coming back and getting 100% for the start of the season. On top of the fact, how much can you? I hate to say it, how much can you really count on him? The guy's been injured for 2 seasons in a row now, or 2 out of 3 seasons. I forget what it is, but it's hard to count on someone like that. On top of it, Antoine Raymond is a very good back. Every program you want to, every good program has 2 good backs. Like you just look around college football, like you want at least 2, if not more. You'll see that depth be affected. I mean, they had to start they actually. I don't think Antoine started. Did Antoine start after Monangai was out that 1 week? He might have. Either way, they had to start a true freshman at one point this season. And you see them start to split carries more and more. No one wants to take 30 carries a game. It's not an ideal situation, unless you're Alshon Jenti, and it's like sure, okay, go ahead, like take 30 carries a game if you're going to throw a run up for like 180, 200 yards, like. But no, I mean, this isn't going to affect the running back room, I'm told. It sounds like everyone's still solid. You have 2 younger backs that are still trying to figure things out, in Guerrier and Winovich. You have Jayshon Benjamin, who has flashed a couple times, but not enough to the extent where I'm really confident so far in him being RB2. You could take that for whatever it's worth, but I think this is like an RB1, and you could argue Antoine Raymond's going to be RB1B technically. Maybe just ride the hot hand, running back by committee. That's just the way of the world, college football.
Yeah, I think Raymond will be more the power guy, while
Yeah.
Campbell will be more the shifty guy who could also, catch passes out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I can't imagine they go after a second back. So running back, you got to figure is closed.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick rundown of, unless you have more on CJ, of
Yeah, just a couple things. So I was reading about him actually because Florida Atlantic did a bio. He's one of 12 siblings, which is crazy. Number one, raised by his grandparents, hence why he was in Florida, I believe, over Louisiana. And he's just really just big on getting better each and every game. It just sounds like, based on this little biography that Florida Atlantic did, I'll post it on the boards and stuff, that he's just a hard worker. He loves football more than anything, and that just kind of preaches to me a Greg Schiano type of recruit. So I think that was an easy selling point. Hey, come here. You have a good chance of starting. You have a good chance of getting playing time. If you're going to work hard, you love the game of football, that's all you could really ask for. But yeah, this is a really good get overall. That's the only concern I would say I have is if you look at the pass blocking grades, they're not great. But I also think they're skewed a little bit because the worst one is a game where he played 18 snaps against UConn. 18 snaps isn't enough to get a legitimate grade, in my opinion. But he did post a 42.2 against Michigan State this year, a 30 versus USF. But then he goes on to the end of the season and he posts a 78 pass blocking grade and a 71 pass blocking and another 78 and a 70 and a 69. So I think those grades are skewed a little bit because there are a couple 2 to 3 bad games in there. But I think pass blocking is the only concern I really have from him. That's really it.
Yeah, I think if you look at how he performed against some of the better opponents on his schedule, it's a little concerning. Because if you look, he played, like you said, Michigan State didn't necessarily have the greatest game. He put up 12 carries for 29 yards, 2 catches for 6 yards in a loss. They played Army, who was another good defense this year, 9 carries for 20 yards, 3 receptions for 16 yards.
Yeah.
And then he kind of ate up on some of the worst teams. So Wagner, he had 129 yards. Charlotte, he had 150 yards. Tulsa, like we already said, he had 100 and 100. But you're also getting, better play calling here, better offensive line, better quarterback play.
Yeah,
so I think we'll see a boost in production based on those factors alone. But is there anything the staff specifically said about this kid that made you kind of perk your ears up, or just the general same platitudes about a guy that they just added?
I would say it was basically the same stuff. There's just a lot of things I've heard via sources is that it gives a little bit of versatility. Like you said before, Antoine Raymond's more of a power back versus this kid's more of a shifty back. The receiving thing is just something I can't stress enough. This is something Rutgers has never had before in a tailback. He had a couple games where he had 100 plus rushing and 50 plus receiving. For a wide receiver room, that's going to be losing Dymere Miller, Christian Dremel. Yes, they return Ian Strong, who's been pretty good. Yes, they return Corey Duff, who's still pretty young and kind of starting to show some flashes. But this is a different dynamic, and like you said before, you can run 2 back sets now if you really wanted to. So I'm intrigued to see how they use him. I know Kirk is very eager to get his hands on him and see how they can make this offense go a little bit quicker.
Love to hear it. This might not be the last thing you hear from us today. I'll just leave it at that. But thanks once again for listening. That's all we got on this commitment. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Signing off.